Over 75% of developers report working overtime regularly with no pay, with 25% of them working 1 to 2 extra days every single week. That's not a career, that's a grind. So what happened? How did the dream job of programming turn into this? Today, we're diving into why corporate jobs are failing programmers and how you can escape the cycle. I'm sharing this with you because I've experienced different sides of the tech world. I started as a junior developer in a consulting firm, climbed up to a managerial position leading many multi-million-dollar projects, and eventually after realizing what a bad hand programmers are actually dealt, I quit and set up my own consulting firm. And along the way, I've learned the dark truth behind why corporate jobs are failing software engineers just like you. And to start, let me tell you a personal story of mine, one that actually explains why software engineers have the highest turnover rate of any sector in the world, sitting at a whopping 13.2%. I remember my day starting at about 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and what better way to start it than with a Scrum meeting. I was supposed to sync up with my East Coast team who would be starting at about 9 a.m. their time. So you'd think that with a 3-hour head start, I'd get to log off early, right? Well, that's a logical conclusion, but wrong. My last meeting wasn't until 5 p.m. that day. And this wasn't a rare occurrence. It was every single day. And by Friday, I remember having logged at least 70 hours of work, knowing full well that the weekend wouldn't be mine either. But the best part was that 30 out of those 70 hours were unpaid overtime because I was on a W-2 salary. I kept telling myself that this was normal, just part of being in tech. But I remember during an all-hands meeting that afternoon, one of the parties shared this announcement. We did great this quarter. Our profit margins are up to 58%. And that moment, it hit me. I wasn't valued for my creativity, my technical skills, or my problem solving. To management, all I was just labor leverage, a tool to increase their profits. If I burnt out, I could be replaced at a snap of a finger. And that's the harsh reality for many programmers out there. Corporate management doesn't understand software development, so they rely on shallow metrics like ticket closures or line of codes to actually measure productivity. But these metrics don't account for the complexities of our work. Companies promise to address technical debt later, but that later never comes. And the result? Developers are stuck in a vicious cycle of rush deadlines, firefighting, and building systems that are pretty much doomed to fail. But the system isn't just broken, it's actually designed this way. And the consequences of this flawed system go beyond just simple mismanagement. I want you to picture a typical work week in a Fortune 500 company. For many software engineers, it's actually exhausting. You feel like you're always on useless meetings, working but somehow never getting ahead. Meetings dominate your day, leaving actual development squeezed into late nights and weekends. At first, you think it's just temporary, that things will ease up next week or maybe next month, but they don't. And for a long time, I convinced myself that this was once again the norm, constantly moving from one meeting to the next with no end in sight. And usually, for every single week, by Friday, I would be drained, knowing I'd have to log back in over the weekend just to keep up with all the engagements. But once again, I kept telling myself, this was how success worked. Grinding through the hard times will eventually pay off. But week after week, I saw no end in sight. Instead of recognition or big rewards, all I got was more work. But why did this actually happen? Because in corporate jobs, success isn't about how hard you work. It's about how much value the company perceives you to bring. And no matter how much effort you put in, that value rarely translates to freedom. You see, with over 75% of developers report working overtime regularly, and with 25% working an additional 1 to 2 days every week, it's not just a problem for a few. It's actually the reality for many software engineers. But here's the best part. This isn't a simple accident. Corporate structures are designed to squeeze as much as they can out of you while keeping you just motivated enough to stay. Sort of like squeezing all the juice out of a lemon. And that's when I actually realized this wasn't sustainable. Not for me, and definitely not for anybody else over the long term. The very same corporate structure that creates these conditions was built with profit, not people, in mind. Charlie Rockefeller, one of the architects of the system, famously said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." And thus, most software engineers are stuck in a system designed to exploit, not support. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might think, Bugo, what about all the L8 Facebook engineers who can make millions of dollars with stock options? Let's talk about them. Let's talk about the rewards. Let's assume you're a senior software engineer, someone who creates solutions that can generate millions, if not billions, for your company. You might expect a piece of that success to trickle down to you. It would only be natural, right? But does it? For a long time, I assumed the answer was always yes. I myself was delivering results, solving problems, and meeting every deadline thrown my way. But at the end of each quarter, while the executives celebrated record profits, I saw no significant changes in my actual paycheck for the work that I had done. And at first I thought it was just a timing issue. Maybe I needed to wait longer, prove myself more, or negotiate better. But as the months turned into years, it became clear. The system wasn't designed to reward me fairly. At the end of the day, all I was just an employee, a follower. And the data actually backs this up. Programmers rate their career happiness at just 3.2 out of 5, placing them in the top 49% of careers, a very mediocre ranking considering it has one of the highest pays. And here's the harsh truth. Most of the value you generate will never reach you. It goes to the executives, shareholders, and the investors. Sure, raises and promotions do happen, but it doesn't even beat inflation most of the time. The only real way to make real financial progress is by job hopping. Hence why so many people job hop so often. And even worse, companies often replace experienced developers with cheaper juniors, hoping they'll produce the same results for less pay. You saw this happening in 2021. And this strategy comes at the expense of quality and the morale of regular software engineers. So the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as intended. Corporate jobs are built to extract as much value as possible while giving back the bare minimum. It's simply business. Money has clouded the judgments for what these companies once stood for. And it's not to say that all companies are like this, but you have to take your future into your own hands. You can't entrust it to a company or to a boss. And thus, I realized that if I stayed, I'd always be undervalued, no matter how much work I did. That's when I made the decision to actually stop being just another cog in a machine and make my own way. And I know you might think that, how could you complain about a $250,000 salary? But if through your own blood, sweat, and tears you generated millions for the company, you only got paid that much, why not just do it for myself? I'm prime evidence that I can actually do it. Why not contribute to something that actually solves real problems? And in doing so, you can make a lot more money, get a lot more recognition, and have a lot more freedom. But best of all, you can actually grow as a person. But I will be honest, leaving the corporate world wasn't exactly easy. It was one of the hardest decisions of my life. And at one point, I remember having just $258 in my bank account with $3,500 in rent being due in 2 days. And I felt like I made a mistake. But by Sunday evening, I closed a $16,000 deal with a client that I'd been pursuing for months. And that was the moment that everything really changed for me. Since then, I've built my career on my terms. Sure, it hasn't been smooth sailing, but for the first time, I'm not working to make somebody else rich. All the overtime I'm putting in, it's from myself. I'm building something that actually matters to me. So, should you quit your job? Well, that's gonna depend. Ask yourself, how much longer can you tolerate the stress, the burnout, and the lack of recognition? How much longer can you tolerate sacrificing your future? If you're ready to make a change, you don't have to start big, start small. Launch a side project. Build your skills and your network. Learn skills outside of your technical domain. Look for problems to solve in everyday things. The path won't be easy, but it will definitely be worth it. Because 20 years from now, you'll either be glad that you made the leap or regret that you didn't. So if you want to make that leap, you need to watch this video next to learn exactly how to escape the 9-to-5 grind and build your future as a software engineer, just like you were always meant to as a creator. As always, thank you for watching and have a good one.